They understand like the only way to stay a tech giant is to actually always like experiment, always try to be the next Facebook. And the big properties like Microsoft, or some of the bigger properties like the Microsofts and Oracles, they become so big and bureaucratic and entrenched that they stop worrying about how to be the next them, and they're so interested in preserving being what they are. And it's these companies that come out of nowhere that you want to emulate. And what's the scariest thing is that with all of the resources in the world, you can't emulate the magic of a startup. You can't emulate Oracle has so much money to put to work, and they can't emulate the excitement of a 50-person company in Soho, doing crazy stuff. And that's why tech is kind of so cool. It's, biotech isn't dissimilar, but the problem with biotech is you have this gigantic capital requirement, whereas you can actually do something really special like an Airbnb or like, something like that, by just, having a great idea and having a lot of willpower. And there's the one thing about tech that a lot of people don't realize is that there are really only a few huge companies. And something I didn't truly appreciate is that, especially on the software side, you've got Google, Microsoft, Facebook, and the list drops like a rock after that. Yeah, so Apple's not a software company. It's they make software for sure that for their phones, but in essence, it's sort of a hybrid. Amazon's a retailer. If you include Alibaba and Tencent, then those are the only 5 tech companies that are bigger than 100 billion, and everyone else is just sort of. I mean, it gets really bad really fast after Priceline.com. Everything's below 50 billion.
What about Oracle?
Yeah, Oracle's a software company. They're 150 billion. It's an enterprise software company. So one has to ask itself is, they're to me as much software company as, I don't know. To me, it's more of a utility than a software company. But yeah, I mean, they're obviously them, SAP, Adobe, Salesforce. So definitely a couple more, but it's in terms of gigantic like companies, there's really not that many, and to me that's very inspiring that a company like Facebook can go from 0 to 350 billion, which is the size of Microsoft. And I think what is it, their 15th anniversary Facebook? Really stunning. 12 years ago they started Facebook. As an entrepreneur, I mean that's the most exciting thing. Now the problem is how many of these companies can we have? And my answer is I think we can have an infinite number of these companies. It's just the question is what problems can they solve? Facebook doesn't really solve anyone's problems. I think it helps.
Well, and do you remember the the Groupon IPO? I mean,
yeah.
It was hyped, it was big, and hardly anybody uses that, and I'm surprised they haven't been acquired or.
Yeah, it's a tiny struggling company. They've definitely faded.
I think there's a lot of vanity on Facebook, of course, but I think it does solve a lot of people's problems, especially just with
subtly.
Like coming from a small town, I see the effect of Facebook on the community in that respect, and it's like night and day. Like they wouldn't be able to have that community in the small town because the infrastructure like it does exist in a city isn't there, and so they can have their traders posts, or they can have all that kind of stuff, and it's a huge service.
Yeah, no, it's a great site. I
think what's better is it's research and development.
Yeah, I mean we'll see what comes out of it, but the fact that we have two of the 4 biggest tech companies weren't here 15 years ago or 20 years ago, Google and Facebook, is truly remarkable. And Google being the largest tech company, just on the same pace, just a little bigger than Apple right now, after Apple's drop and Google's continued dominance.
Well, Alphabet,
in fact,
certainly have more irons in the fire as far as projects are concerned versus Apple.
Strictly software, actually 4 out of the 5 or 5 out of the top 6. I mean, Alphabet, Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, Alibaba, Tencent. The only one that's existed 20 years ago is Microsoft. So it's really, these companies came out of nowhere and they actually solve problems. So I think tech is still early days. You know, the idea that we're, you know, that anyone's quote unquote late to the. I was told in 2000 when I was starting in hedge funds that I was late to tech. 2000.
Well, it was after the .bomb, though.
Yeah, but you know, Facebook, he started the goddamn thing in 2004.
Yeah, but you remember everybody was pretty scared. I mean, because after '99, the tech.
Oh, this was in 2000 during the bubble. So.
Oh, so it was right before the.
Yeah, I was late to the bubble because the bubble was happening. It was like, oh, everyone's already gone public, and like, the bubble's here. You know, it's too late for you. You should have been here in '95 writing Netscape code instead of here in '99 and 2000 watching eBay go public and Pets.com go public, and you know, you're too late. You should.
Man, in 1999, weren't you, Martin?
What's that?
You're like 17 in 1999.
Yeah. I was trying to figure out what to do with my life, and you know, starting a software company was a very feasible idea for me, and instead I became an investor, and it's probably one of my biggest regrets. Not like emotionally regretting it or anything, but just tactically.
Wait, what do you mean it's a regret when you've had so much success?
Well, I mean, I think I've had much more success.
Was software? Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, opportunity cost.
Yeah, I mean, investing. I mean, look, I'm 33 years old. There's a lot of time, but and that's why again I'm sanguine that, you know, the drug business is not growing. It's like this very finite, shitty business, and it is true that if you solve problems with drugs, the money's there. It's basically like so much money is being spent on Alzheimer's and hospices that no matter what conditions exist, if you created an Alzheimer's drug, you'd probably be richer than Zuckerberg. So that because there's that cost in the system, removing costs out of the system is what's key. And the problem I have with stuff like Facebook is like the only problem I have with the business model is I'm not sure what costs they take away from the world. I think they help maybe brands like Procter & Gamble rationalize their ad expense and say, well, this is a better way to spend ad money than Super Bowl or TV campaigns. And, you know, to me, that's a very marginal improvement for their customers. Nobody's paying for Facebook. They don't find it that valuable. You know, so it ultimately is it's an advertiser's tool. And for a company to be worth $340 billion to be a marginal tool for slightly more effective advertising, if it is that seems like a poor application of what technology can really do.
Right.
Nice, agreed.
I think Facebook's end goal is the universal web ID.
For sure, yeah, and messaging and
That'd be a pretty good utility.
Well, I think like if you look what they're doing with their so-called their messenger, they have a CEO just for Messenger, and his goal is to create this autonomous, you know, AI that's going to be your assistant in essence. And whether that takes off or not, we'll see. But that would actually be something that people would, you know, that's a value-added service. If I had an assistant, you know, messaging me all day, a virtual assistant, that'd be really neat. You know, Microsoft had Clippy, which was their little dream as well. But
it has to be more than a chat bot, and Facebook's good enough to program the AI like you're talking about.
Yeah, they're trying.
What is a Watson?
It's it's to me a very poorly written series of machine learning algorithms that are useless.
All right.
I mean,
That's the IBM deal, right?
Yeah, I've tried to use
it.
We tried to use Watson 100 times and could never get it to do even the most basic things.
And you couldn't query it, right? For
total trash.
Medical stuff.
Yep.
You tried to use that in healthcare?
Oh yeah.
It's like asking a robot what's the meaning of Moby Dick. It's not going to get the picture.
It was terrible. We hated it, and IBM tried hard to help us get it to work. We had 5 developers. Turing was an unusual company. We had 5 developers trying to make it work, and it wouldn't work. So
I spoke to the one of the Watson people, and he told me that the medical thing is on the back burner for Watson now.
yeah, that's terrible. I mean, that was their big thing, and it really doesn't add up for anybody. And Yeah, it's too bad.
I think they're more interested in things like analytics now.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, their cognitive, learning platform doesn't seem very cognitive.
You see them advertise it all the time, and or this and that. But if you look at the actual income statement from IBM, it's all consulting, and they're not selling any software anymore, and it's.
They're more like Accenture or Deloitte.
Absolutely, yeah, they're exactly like Accenture, and they're just they make servers, and they the revenues declined every quarter for the last 30 quarters or something. It's really a terrible company right now. It's amazing how many employees they have as well. I mean, they have like 300,000.
Yeah, in 170 countries, they have about 3,000.
300,000 employees. Wow.
300,000.
Yeah.
Okay. That's fucked up.
Yeah, no, it's an enormous wasteland of humanity.
I mean, if you look at the top 10 hedge funds and add all their employees up together, it wouldn't be that many.
No, not even close. It wouldn't even be 10,000.
Yeah, I mean, they made a big splash for the Jeopardy thing, and then Dave Ferrucci left for Bridgewater, and then, I guess I don't know where it's going now.
They do this all the time. They did it with Deep Blue, and nothing came of that.
Right, with the Kasparov game.
Yeah. It's like...
Oh, Deep Blue. Wow. Haven't thought about that in a while.
Yeah, they're great toys, guys, but meanwhile, in the time that IBM did from Deep Blue to Jeopardy, the Facebook, Salesforce.com, and Google were invented. Where were they? They couldn't get
selling off their laptop business. That's what they're
Yeah, they couldn't get a little piece of that pie. Jesus Christ!
The biggest thing about IBM's Watson is this website that I found, their News Explorer. That's their biggest selling point.
Yes.
Using cognitive learning to sort of get up-to-the-minute news information. And it would be good. I mean, you can search for, people and companies and stuff and find relational data, but it's really trash. It's not, I don't know.
We just asked it 100 times, what's the difference between type 1 and type 2 diabetes? Which everyone knows.
Come on.
And we asked it 100 different ways, and it just couldn't get there. And it's if you're really AI, that's
simple stuff.
I was like, we buy
Google that.
We buy drugs for a living, drug assets, and I want a computer to help me automate that because I don't want to read 20,000 medical journals. And they're like, we can help you with that. And I was like, all right, guess not.
Yo, Ron, do you know what NCB is? It's like a management service incorporated. It's like a debt collecting company.
It's like a what?
A debt collecting company.
Okay.
And that's my boss. He owns it. And I don't know how it really works, but is it pretty much the debt companies buy the debt from the banks and they put interest on it?
Sometimes, if you have a customer who owes you money, like a credit card, they're late on their payments, you need somebody to call and nag them to make their payments, And so you could there's a fee for that, It's probably based on whether or not they end up paying.
Very successful, and it's insane how he's worth so much money.
Yeah, especially if you buy bad debt, it can be a really good business.
Well, yeah, because don't you buy for 10 cents a dollar?
Depends on how doubtful the debt is, right? I mean, if there's a bank that says let's say a credit card company that says, there's no way this guy's ever going to pay his bill, and it's a $2,000 bill. The guy's broke, and he says, I don't have any money. And you buy it for $200, and you go to the guy and you say, look, I can make all this go away for $500, or I'm going to chase you for the rest of your life.
That makes sense.
It's not what you say, but it's what you imply, right? And the guy says, that's not such a bad deal. I could pay you $500. I'll pay you $100 a month for, 5 months. You make double your money. It's a sick deal. Double your money is amazing, right? So, it's an incredible deal. So, problem is that market's gotten, I don't know if it has gotten, I don't follow the market, but, it's competitive. Other people can do it, and, you got to hire people to man the phones to go chase people and make annoying phone calls, sound threatening, without breaking the law, obviously. And if you've ever missed a credit card payment by a week, they'll call you and that reminds me, I gotta go pay my credit card bill. you know, they'll go nuts. You know, they really want to collect, and you got to keep on top of that. Nailed. I mean, I'm surprised at sometimes how fast. I mean, I can be pretty forgetful in the loof, but you know, they can move pretty quickly in terms of when they consider your debt, not paid.
Yeah, well, my boss's dad owned a death collecting company, and then his son didn't really get along great, so he competed with him. He's a successful man he is today with 8 Ferraris in the garage right next to me.
That's funny. Yeah, no, it's great. It can be a great business. It's you know, and it's sort of like as crazy as it sounds, you're kind of helping people, you know, get rid of their debt. And it's not I think anyone is happy to hear from a debt collector, but when they offer a deal that's, you know, sort of reasonable, you know, it's often a good second chance to.
But I think it's like kind of dumb how when people hear debt collector, they think of like a bad person, like just because they.
Yeah, it's not their fault.
Someone has to do it, you know.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're the one who got into debt.
Yeah, it's like, why do you show people that collect money? So they're not actually going and like putting guns to people's heads, like give me your money. It's not how it works.
Yeah, and often they'll cut you a really, really good deal if you negotiate. Right. So it's sometimes free. I mean, it's basically free money. You spent $2,000. So you can settle for $1,000. I mean, you're really taking advantage of them more than the other way around.
Right, I get that.
Yeah, but your credit rating's probably shot at that point.
Oh, sure.
Oh, yeah.
But, you know, if you're the kind of person that, you know, that doesn't really make a difference to you. You know, because eventually those ratings will start to come back. And
what I don't get is how my social teacher was telling me how, or humanities teacher, was saying how you can only put $250,000 into a bank that the government will cover.
Sure.
And so I don't understand how rich people, like, where do they put their money? I mean, I know you can use like offshore accounts.
Well, the FDIC will guarantee, no matter what happens, that $250,000 is guaranteed by the banking system. But you can have an account that has $100 million in it. It's only guaranteed by the FDIC, because what happened in the 80s is there was something called the savings and loan crisis. S&Ls were bank-like institutions that people made deposits in, and they failed. The banks had lent more money than they could possibly pay back, and they made bad investments and so forth. And when your bank fails, I mean, when you make a deposit of $100,000 and the bank says, sorry, we lost your money, that should never happen. And that's why. What's that?
Isn't that where bonds became something? Because they couldn't pay people back, they gave them like an interest?
Not exactly, but the point of a bank is to take deposits and then relend the money, right? And that's called fractional reserve. But some banks failed, and so the government decided that they needed a so-called FDIC, or an insurance company, federally backed insurance system, so that at least some of your money in a bank account will be guaranteed no matter what happens. Because when we had Lehman Brothers that collapsed, there were other banks that almost collapsed. And
so why would you ever keep more than $250,000 in a bank?
Well, it's very unlikely that big banks will collapse. But if I had $100 million of cash, very few people have that much cash. Most people have investments and so forth. But if you had a brokerage account, you could easily have, you know, lots of people have 10 million, 100 million, $1 billion of securities. Not a lot of people, but there's funds and things like that. And so what they're not insured, and so they're technically at risk, right? If a bank fails, like Lehman Brothers, you could lose all of your deposits.
Yeah, and that's like crazy.
Yeah, this happened several times. So that's why most people with that kind of wealth and that kind of, if it's a fund, that kind of assets, they tend to put their money in well-known, reliable banks, because they're afraid, you know, naturally that if they put it in a small bank could disappear if that small bank makes one bad loan, right? Banks are supposed to make loans, but they can make bad loans, and that could wipe out their deposits. So JP Morgan and other banks, Wells Fargo, are very strong banks that people think about before they deposit. But if you're depositing $5,000 or even 500,000, you may not be that concerned about the solvency of your bank, because you're such a small fish, and it just shouldn't matter too much. You know, Capital One is a much smaller bank. Fifth Third Bank Corp there's local banks, like we have one here called Astoria Financial.
Yeah, we have a bunch of banks too.
Yeah, and they're just tiny banks that, you know, they're probably not going to fail, but, you know, there's a better chance they fail than JP Morgan. Although, you know, sometimes these small banks, they keep things simple. They make little mortgage loans. They don't, you know, they don't go crazy with the wild kind of financial shenanigans that JP Morgan does. I mean, JP Morgan had one guy who lost, what, like $5 billion, and they didn't even notice for a long time. And so in any event, you know, there's a lot that goes into banking that a lot of people don't understand. But the FDIC is, it's just an insurance.
My boss stores his cars here, and like I think that's his like investment because he doesn't drive most of these cars. It's like he has a lot of.
Well, that's funny. Cool.
1967 Ferraris.
I'm sure it's a fun passion too.
Oh yeah, he loves it.
Yeah, they definitely keep their value, I think.
Oh yeah, he goes to like car shows and stuff, and brings all these insane cars.
I don't think they're great investments, but they definitely they keep their value.
Oh yeah, well, don't you not pay taxes on cars because it's an item?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know. That's actually pretty neat.
Because I know that the license plates are registered in Montana, so he doesn't pay the licensing tax for a car.
That's kind of neat. Yeah. I mean, I would imagine if you buy and then you sell a car, that there would be taxes on it, but maybe not.
Yeah, because I know they do it at auction, so that could be where there's no taxes.
Yeah, it's hard to buy something for X and sell it for more than X and not pay a tax. But
yeah, very true.
You never know. I mean, that could be a neat little loophole. But again, you know, it's not the great.
Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say it's not the. I don't think it's the greatest. Asset class that always goes up. It's not like other kinds. It's a kind of art, right? But it's not like necessarily other kinds.
You gotta know what you're doing.
Yeah, those collectibles are risky. I've done a bunch of work in collectibles, and they're just small markets like baseball cards, stamp collection, cars, anything but paint. You know, paintings are where you're dealing with. You know, paintings and sculptures. That's when you're dealing with the big stuff. But you know, the most expensive car collected, I forgot what it was, but
I think it was 28 million. It was sold
yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, it's in the millions.
He has one in here. It's about 5.
Wow. Yeah.
Ferrari GTB.
Wow. Yeah, that's quite a car. Yeah, that's as much of a work of art as a Picasso, but they just don't. You know, there's Picasso that's 100 million, 150 million. You know.
Oh yeah, there's nothing like that for cars.
Yeah, so it's sort of like. Doesn't mean you can't have a really nice collection, and I know a lot of people that do collect that stuff, and you can have $100 million car collection for sure.
Oh yeah, Jay Leno. You know, he was like a $500 million car collection.
No. I know he had the biggest, but I don't think it was worth $500 million. Jay.
Yeah, but Seinfeld is worth too.
No.
It's worth a lot. Let me check that out.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit much, but
it's a little bit much, yeah.
Maybe 50 million. Still a lot. Mm-hmm. Still more than.
Well, my boss is here. His is worth like 20. That's it.
That's really nice, yeah.
Because he got a car. I think one of the things with cars is though, once you're in with like certain dealerships and stuff, they give you like a lot of perks. Because he got the Porsche 918, which is
wow.
918 in the world.
Yeah, wow.
That's that went up about $700,000 in last year. It just came out.
That's so cool. Yeah, no, especially if you like it, you know, then that's, you know, I don't particularly love cars, so like for me it doesn't matter. But like if you love music or something, there's all kinds of things you could collect. I love music, so for me the Wu-Tang was a natural purchase, but I've also purchased, you know, other memorabilia from Nirvana or any other.
Oh, I love Nirvana.
Yeah, so like, you know, if it's your passion, then it's a neat.
Here it says Jay Leno's net worth of his collection is about $350 million.
Shut up.
Yeah.
I don't believe it.
He has a $14 million Rolls Royce.
That is nuts.
With 24 karat gold.
It's so hard to believe. It's just so much money.
Yeah, he has a show now. It's called Leno's Garage.
I never thought Jay Leno was that rich.
But yeah, he's one of the most paid talk show host ever. I think he's second most paid.
Still, I didn't think he was that rich. Jesus.
Yeah, he's worth a lot of money. Seinfeld's worth, I think, like 700.
Yeah, Seinfeld's very rich, but that show was.
Oh my god, my dad literally
Incredible.
watched every episode.
Yeah.
More than once. My parents just went and saw him and his stand up. They said he was actually really good. They said last time it sucked. They saw him. And this year he was great.
Yeah, seems like a decent guy.
Well, you get on one of those sitcoms like his reruns, you get royalties for every time it airs.
Oh yeah, like Friends, Seinfeld, 70s Show.
No, Seinfeld's on Hulu. I think it's the only place you can stream it.
Really?
Yeah. He's got to be pulling in a lot of money. I have a friend who studies at Juilliard, and he has a professor who was on like one episode of Law and Order and still gets a check like every month for like a couple $100 for this one episode that he was like a minor role in.
That's awesome. The Friends people apparently get like $100,000 a month just from Friends, like reruns.
It's a big show, man. Huge show.
It's like, oh, here you go, extra $100,000.
Yeah, I mean those actors are the top of their game.
Hey, Robert Downey Jr. not getting $60 million a movie right now from Marvel.
Jeez.
Yeah. I think for Civil War he got $60 million. But what's Marvel without Iron Man, you know?
Sure. All right, I'm gonna get back to this textbook.